Monster Hunter is one of my favorite series of all time, and when I first played it, I did so on the 3DS, a relatively small handheld console that you could pretty easily take anywhere. Since 2014 though, this series has absolutely exploded. World and Rise are the two most popular entries, and it's not even close. I absolutely love both of these games, but I do sometimes miss those days where I'd pull my 3DS out of my pocket and quickly hunt a couple monsters during lunch break in high school. So when I received an email asking if I wanted to make a video about a new Monster Hunter game coming to mobile that aimed to capture the spirit of this iconic series, I didn't think twice. So thanks to Monster Hunter Outlanders, co-developed by Timmy and Capcom, for sponsoring this video. Monster Hunter Outlanders is being developed by Timmy Studio Group. It's an MMO mobile version of the Monster Hunter we all know and love, and you may not believe that at a glance, so let's first go over what makes World and Wild special, then we can check the boxes and see if those exist in Outlanders. The very first thing that comes to mind when I think of Monster Hunter is variety. There are so many different ways to play the game. I've told this story before, but when I first played the series in 4U, I spent about 500 hours using exclusively one weapon, but I started to get bored. I had practically mastered the dual blades at this point, having soloed most of G rank and made all of the best weapons in the game. I didn't really know what to do next, so out of a bit of desperation, I took a look in my item box, and there it was. The switch axe. This was a weapon I had never used before, and I barely even knew where to begin, but when I entered that first hunt with it, I felt something I hadn't experienced in hundreds of hours. It was that very same feeling that I got when I first played the game with dual blades. This wonderful feeling is a direct result of the depth apparent in Monster Hunter's combat. The switch axe isn't simply a new way to deal damage, it's not just a means to an end. No, it has a specific role, strengths, weaknesses, quirks, and traits that you must memorize and master to fully unlock this weapon's potential. Now imagine this exact same feeling, but over a dozen different times. This was an idea I fell in love with, and I'm not the only one. I'm willing to bet a large part of why this series is so successful is that depth and variety. If you find yourself getting bored with one weapon, you can just try a new one. But Monster Hunter Generations and its expansion, Generations Ultimate, took this idea even further with Hunter arts and hunting styles. Now, instead of just having all these weapons to choose from, your options increase exponentially with each of these weapons having access to multiple different styles. It's thanks to this near overwhelming variety that it's nearly impossible to ever run out of ways to play these games. So we'll make that the first point, variety in combat. Next, we'll talk about something that World introduced and that Wilds is expanding on. When you first land in the ancient forest, you're confronted with these goofy little guys scurrying across the ground, chirping birds in the distance, this wind whistling through the foliage that blankets the entire area. I mean, it's truly an immersive experience, but it goes so much further than this. What really made World stand out wasn't just its living ecosystem, but its seamless maps. You could go from the base camp to the Rathlos's nest and back without encountering a single loading screen. These seamless maps and living worlds came together to create an experience that, for the very first time in the series, felt like you were actually hunting these monsters and not just playing a video game. Wilds then takes this idea up to an 11. Not only are the areas far larger than they were in World, but they're these active, ever-changing environments. Sandstorms, thunderstorms, floods, and fires all totally reinvent the battlefield through each and every hunt. We've never seen maps this dynamic before, and it's one of the most exciting parts of Wilds to me, so we'll call that number 2, seamless and dynamic maps. Okay, so what is Monster Hunter Outlanders, and does it actually accomplish these goals? Let's start with that first question. Monster Hunter Outlanders aims to take that core Monster Hunter experience from World and soon Wilds, and add its own personal unique ideas to create an experience that feels fresh while still retaining the identity that made Monster Hunter special in the first place. Even the structure of the game, where you accept quests, hunt a monster, and craft new gear out of these defeated monsters, all remains. The combat is similar to the mainline games like World and Rise, with action combat where one or more hunters work together to take down a single powerful monster. My biggest concern when I first heard about this game was that it wouldn't feel like Monster Hunter, but just another mobile game. However, after seeing footage of it and hearing what the team has to say about what they're trying to do here, it's clear that they really did pull some magic and somehow squeeze that iconic style down into this smaller format. What's even more impressive here though isn't simply the fact that they're trying to take Monster Hunter and shrink it down to mobile. They're trying to take things a step further than that. It would have been easy to take what the series was, add in loading screens, shrink the areas, simplify the combat, and just call it Monster Hunter Mobile. But again, that's not what they did. Let's start with the combat. As I mentioned before, it's similar to mainline Monster Hunter's combat. But check this out, what you're looking at right now is the new class system. Thanks to this genetically engineered, lab-grown, most adorable creature of all time, you can take on a new role in combat. Outlanders will introduce a profession system. You can think of these a bit like classes in an RPG. To fully understand why this is such an exciting prospect, let's take a look at one of my favorite combinations of a style and weapon from Generations Ultimate. This may seem off topic, but just stick with me, the principle is the same. So in GU there was a style called Adept, which basically gave you a super dodge that, if timed correctly, let you fly straight through attacks and deliver powerful counters that varied depending on your weapon. The Switch Axe, especially before Iceborne, had absolutely abysmal defense. But thanks to the Adept style, you now gain this outstanding evasive ability. When you take this inherently defensive style and mix it with the overwhelming offensive Switch Axe, instead of cancelling out, the two end up amplifying each other and making an even more aggressive version of the weapon. You see, if you don't have to worry about preservation, you can instead focus the entirety of your energy on an all-out assault. This is why I often say that defensive skills can be just as beneficial to your DPS as things like weakness exploit and crit boost, since your affinity doesn't matter if you're on a cart rolling back to camp. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you chose to play Striker Switch Axe, you're now in a totally new role. Thanks to the Hunter arts provided by Striker, you could be a pure damage dealer with skills like Demon Riot and Trance Slash. You've now taken the already hyper-aggressive nature of this weapon and added a hyper-aggressive style onto it, making it, well, even more aggressive. Relating this back to Outlanders, this class system provides us with the ability to not just choose our weapons, but the specific roles we'll have in battle as well. This takes the already incredibly customizable nature of Monster Hunter and adds a new layer of depth to it that's genuinely really exciting to me. I've always loved class systems in games because of this level of depth and player freedom that they provide. You could be a paladin focused purely on protecting your team, a rogue whose primary goal is DPS, or a mage that aims to turn the tide of the entire battle with a single spell. So naturally, when you take this type of system into a game like Monster Hunter, where there's already a tremendous amount of customization, classes only serve to take that to a totally new level. So as far as combat goes, not only is this game going to be similar to the Monster Hunter games we already know and love, but it'll be adding its own flair that'll allow it to stand on its own. Now, if you believed these new additions stopped at combat, I wouldn't blame you. But just like how Outlanders plans to add a unique spin to Monster Hunter's combat, it also aims to do the same with the open world. Exploration will be a major focus of Monster Hunter Outlanders, with the player character in this game literally being referred to as an adventurer instead of the normal hunter that we're used to. Going along with this theme of exploration is the first big addition that Outlanders introduces to the world: crafting and base building. Players will be able to create their own base camps and even hunting installations like Ballistas? I don't know. This is still an MMO, of course, which means that you'll be able to quickly and easily join other players to hunt, craft, and just hang out. It's kinda nice. Just like in World Rise and Wilds, there will be no loading screens here. It'll be a totally seamless and open map. Within this map, there are multiple different environments. You may be reminded of the Guiding Lands from Iceborne or some of the newer maps from Wilds. Just based on what we've seen, there's a swamp area, a forest, some cliffs, and a desert. There may be even more, but we just haven't seen it yet. This variety is reminiscent of older Monster Hunter maps where you'd begin in a cave, then move to some open plains, then some mountains, then a forest, then you get the idea. It's not just one single theme throughout the entire map, but different environments for the player to explore. My favorite shot from the trailer that demonstrates this idea is right here. The player rockets into the sky and uses the glider to get an aerial view of their surroundings. Just from this shot alone, we can see what looks like an active volcano with lava on the sides directly in front of us, a higher altitude forest region on a cliff to the right, and even a desert to the left. You've got these shots where the player launches themselves off a catapult and glides off into the distance to really hammer home the absolute scale of this world. Remember, this is just one region we're looking at. The full island is multiple times bigger than everything we've seen in this gliding overhead shot, and almost as if to communicate that idea, we're shown a map where you can clearly see that this is the region we were just looking at, and this is everything else. Now, what about that living and dynamic part that World is known for? Well, that seems to be here too. If you pause at this point in the trailer, you can see an Anjanath carrying a Jagras, suggesting that there will likely be ecological interactions. There was this feeling in World that the environment existed whether you were there or not, and that seems to be present here as well. This Anjanath didn't hunt a Jagras to help out the player or provide an entertaining spectacle. It did so because it was hungry. That's it. In another shot, we've got a Giratotus emerging from the water to ambush its prey, and even Toby climbing a tree while perhaps stalking some Kelby. And with plans to add rain, sandstorms, and even thunderstorms, it looks like this isn't just going to be an adaptation of that open world we've seen in previous games, but an evolution. Hopefully, there will even be events that you can find as you explore, like gliding minigames, small monster rampages, and and egg delivery quests. Okay, maybe not that last one. All of this comes together to produce what looks like a truly faithful adaptation of not just the Monster Hunter games we've already experienced like World, Rise, and Generations, but even the ones we've yet to play like Wilds. So go check out the official website and social accounts to keep up with any updates on Monster Hunter Outlanders.